Ever fancied having a go at oil paints but don't even know where to start? Then this video might be for you. This is ideal for beginners, i.e. people who have never painted before, or for people that would like to transition to oil, have done acrylic and watercolours. I'm going to hopefully show you that oils aren't scary and in fact are a fantastic medium for beginners because they're so forgiving. And by the end of this video, hopefully you have a finished article just like this. Let's get to it. For this painting, I chose a reference image from pixel.com. You'll find a link in the description below. What caught my eye was the penguin on the right looking down at his chick. I decided to focus on this part of the image to create my own outline. Now, I transferred this image to some software to trace it out, but you can absolutely do this from a printed copy if you prefer. To make things a little bit easier, I've also produced a line drawing as a free reference on my website. The link will be, once again, in the description below. Oils are typically painted onto canvas, but if you're just starting out or experimenting with new techniques, I would recommend using acrylic paper. It's a much more affordable option. For this painting, I didn't use oils alone. I started with an acrylic background. Here I have attached a sheet of acrylic paper to my board and lightly sprayed it with water to help the acrylic paint glide on smoothly. For me, in this painting, I actually used Golden Artist acrylics because I love this fluorescent pink that you can use. But feel free to use any colour that you want, or if you wish, skip this stage altogether and just paint the penguins straight onto the acrylic, leaving the white background. The choice is yours. Here I'm painting acrylic straight onto the damp acrylic paper. Now I am using a watercolour brush here because I don't want any texture. I want a lovely flat surface. I just go back and forth until I pretty much cover the entire acrylic paper. Here I'm using a Monday mop to smooth everything out. As I say, I am after that beautiful smooth surface. For me, I do like having a couple of coats. So what I do is I actually painted this first layer on, then I actually went off and I traced out my little penguins to come back and do the second layer. Acrylics do take only about 2 or 3 minutes to dry. Once dry, I either attach carbon paper or chalk paper. All depends on the colour of the background. I do like chalk paper though, because it's just easy to cover over or to wipe off. There's nothing wrong with tracing, but if you would prefer to do it free-handed, feel free to do that. There's no right or wrong in art, it's all just about enjoyment. I have found that using a biro to trace over the line drawing on top of the chalk paper, the best way to get the image transferred. Now, I don't know if you can see, I've actually forgotten to do his arm here. That's okay. I will do that freehand, not a problem. Make sure that's stuck down. I normally use a glass palette to mix my oils or put my oils on, but for this tutorial, I'm actually going to stick a piece of acrylic paper next to this painting so you can see what I'm mixing and how I'm mixing it. I need the smallest amount of yellow. Now I have used Naples yellow, but to be truthful, pretty much any yellow will do, because we are only using the smallest amount, and it's the yellow that goes, you know, just behind the head bit here. Then I'm also going to be using white. I like to use, if I can find it, some raw umber. Ultramarine. I think one of the, hopefully, if you see the size of my finger, hopefully one of the things you will notice is how much paint that we use. Now, at the moment, I cannot put a link in on my YouTube because I haven't been able to verify who I am. So what I will do is I'll put in my website, and in my website there will be links to all of these sort of things. But the brushes that I'll be using today, Rosemary and Co brushes. This is like from a 305 series. I think this is a size 4. And what I've got, which have got a lovely point on them. And then I've got 2 that I've used a couple of times, so therefore they've lost their point. I want to be able to paint back and forth. You do not want to do that with your new brushes that have got points, because you'll get rid of the point. And I use the point ones because I want to get lovely straight lines here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make up my own black. I'm going to make my own black. Now I've got a little bit of Gamsol. I'll show you. In this nice little tin, I've got a little bit of Gamsol, and I dip my brush into a bit of Gamsol. It's always handy also to have a little bit of kitchen roll so you can wipe your brush off. Now I'm going to get a bit of the raw umber and a bit of the ultramarine. You will hear me every now and then call that aquamarine because I just can't seem to get that to stick in my head. And I'm going to make up a nice black there. And what we'll do is we'll put it in the middle here to see if that, see, I think that is black. Now I'm going to just change over to the brush, well, one of the brushes that's got a point on. Put that lovely black on that brush, just so I can get that sharp line. I'll try and leave that little bit there so I can put the orange in. When you are painting an Aprima, which is pretty much this time, I all in one go, you are almost like completing it a little bit, leaving space and so forth for paints rather than painting like, so you're painting around each other. If you were doing painting over several days, you can let it dry, then you can paint straight over the top. So when I'm painting, I'm pretty much, I don't brush back and forth. I am applying it to the paper, bringing it down, bringing it off the paper and taking it back. I normally do this in the way that the hair's flowing, or in this case, the feathers. think I underestimated how much paint, how much black I was going to need. Because it's come out really nice and dark, so we'll add the black in over the shoulder. Just added a little bit of Gamsol to the oil that's on my little palette here, little homemade palette. This is a great painting for like a very first painting of oils that you're ever going to do. A lot of my work is quite realistic. This, I'm not necessarily aiming for realistic. I do want people to be able to tell quite easily that it is a penguin. Hello, Liz. That's my second dog joining me. This is more about knowing how to apply oils and just having fun with it, really. And that's the thing, it should be just about having fun. I've noticed that there's quite a dark bit down this top part of the arm. People tell me I've got the most amazing patience. And do you know what? The only thing I've got patience for is painting. If you're one of these people that thinks, oh, do you know, I haven't got the patience for this, until you actually do it, you don't realise that you do. I think when you take it up, you realise there's so much concentration with what you're doing that time goes really quickly and you don't realise how much time you've actually spent on something. For me, I'm aiming for that crisp line between his back and the pink background. However you hold a pen or a pencil when you go to draw is pretty much how I hold a brush, especially when I'm trying to do straight lines and so forth. If you watch some other artists, they will actually hold their paintbrush right at the end, and that's really good if you're just like blocking in or just getting those basic colours down to start with. Because I'm working in such a small area, I'm just going to have that control. I'd move it with my hand a little bit further down, just like a pen, and use a brush just like that. I want a dark, really dark grey. I'm just going to keep mixing it until I get the colour that I want. And it's a good idea to keep turning your brush left and right, that you can mix it. It almost mixes up on your brush too. Now this might be a bit light, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to come in here and put this grey down, and then we might blend a little bit more dark into it. Now, if I did all his back and his wing in just black, it will end up being quite flat. What we want to do is give him a little bit of shape. We need to pick up those other colours. Right, another little bit of Gams. Just because I find that white is quite a thick oil, and you will find different oils have different flow to them. Because I find white quite thick, I find that I do need to add a little bit more medium sometimes. What you are seeing at the moment, I am pretty much just blocking in a little bit, and we're going to actually blend quite a bit on the paper. So I want to go a little bit darker. I'm going to just wipe my brush off a little bit. And come back to this like black up here. Have it a little bit mixed in with that grey, but you can see it's much darker. I'm just almost like patting it in. Now once again, I am like applying, dragging and pulling off. I am doing it quite quickly, just to start to give that little bit of a roll feel to it. The back. Right, tiny little bit more. And when I say tiny, it's like I'm trying to put as least amount on my brush that I can possibly can. I'm going to use it for the top of the feet as well. Here I'm suggesting the feet rather than actually getting all the fine detail in. And now I'm just doing little flicks to show where the hair, I say hair, feathers coming down. Right, back up here, we're going to go dark again, so a little bit more umber, a little bit more ultramarine. Right, I'm going to leave my pointy brush at the moment, my newer brush, and I'll go back to the brush that's slightly been battered because it's slightly older. I'm going to taking a lot of the paint off. I'm not worried about it being absolutely ultra clean. So I'm going to use it now to blend these colours. So the bit around the neck here, I still want to be sharp, but all the way in the back, I almost want it to blend a little bit. With the pink coming in from underneath, it has like a little bit of a purple look in some of this black as well. Quite like it. I'm almost like smoothing it out. I hope that's picking it up. You see, I've gone over a little bit there. I'm going to show you what to do in that situation. I haven't got that clean line there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get another brush. Let me see if I can find a clean. I'm going to get an absolutely fresh brush, clean. I'm going to absolutely like soak it in Gamsol, then wipe it off a little bit. It's nice and wet, but not like it's going to be dripping. And then I've come in over the top and brush back and forth. I'm just going to use this brush almost like a rubber and make it disappear. Did you see that? And that is why I think oils make a brilliant medium for first timers. Try it out. because it is so forgiving. Right, I'm going to go back to my little pointy brush, my Nula brush. Now I'm going to come down and take a little bit of that lamp black, come in, mix that with my other grey. Now I'm going to use this quite sparingly. I want to get that bit in the shoulder. I've got a thing called a Maulstich stick. Basically it's a ball with a bit of fabric and a pole. I have ones like this that you can buy, and I've also I'll actually give you my absolute favourite. This is my favourite Maulstich, and it's one I made myself. A bit of rag around like a bean pole, and it is brilliant. This is a game changer. I've literally put it on here, lean it on the board, on that bit there, but just above it, and I use that to get my hand rests against the stick rather than in the painting, and it just gives me great control. Make that really black. I'm going to come down the top of his head. I think that will benefit from being really black. And then we're going to look at the bottom of his feet. Now, do you see that smudge down there? I'm not too worried because I'm going to do a reflection down here in the bottom, and that will be dark anyway. I've still got this dark on my brush, and that's that black. I'm also going to look at the baby penguin's head, because that is very black. Actually, do I want to do that just yet? No, because there's quite a lot of little detail here. I'm going to do the white and put the black on top, I think. Normally in oil paints, you add black and then you get lighter and lighter and lighter as you go along. When you do an El Prima, you can sometimes change it and like almost like play around with it a little bit. That's what I'm going to do here. Therefore, I'm going to save the black. I just wanted to make that little bit look a little bit more like there's feathers going on down there. Okay, with a new brush and a cleaner brush, now there's no reason why you couldn't use the same brush, just cleaning it really well in between. I actually quite like getting a fresh brush, and then we're going to pick that white up. So I put a little bit of Gamsol on my brush, especially with it being white. And we're going to come in, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill all of this white, and then we'll add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of grey just to make it look a little bit more realistic and not so flat. I won't lie, I have already actually painted this penguin. I liked it so much, I've actually given it away as a present at Christmas. I'm hoping that if you follow along and you have a go at painting this little guy or these two little guys, and that you'll have something that you like enough that you probably hang it on your wall, or you'll be happy to give it as away as a gift. Once again, I want a little bit better control. I'm bringing up my Maulstich. Depends where you are. Some people call it a Maulstich, some call it a Maulstich. It is spelled M-A-H-L, but I have heard different people calling it different things. Got a little bit of pink coming through, but I actually quite like that, and I'm going to leave it. Now, if you want, you can actually try and get up to nice and close to the black, or closer to the black. I actually quite like that little bit of pink coming through. A little bit more Gamsol into that white. This white now is contaminated because I'm sometimes picking up a little bit of grey and bringing it over here. It doesn't really bother me if it's slightly off white, and we're going to change the white anyway in a minute. You'll see when I'm going to do the second layer that we will add some like little bits of blues and little bits of greys to give it this whiter shape. But for now, we're just filling in this area. Picked up a little bit of grey there, you can tell because it's bled a little bit into the white. I've just wiped my brush off, come back to get some more white, and then come back in here again. And now we're going to do a little bit of white down here, but it's going to pick up the grey from underneath. But you get that beautiful blend there. I quite like it. More white. If you're not painting along with me at the moment, you might just want to speed this a little bit up, because it's going to take me a moment to get the feet in. Or the legs, should I say. The little white hairy legs. And a little bit more Gamsol. But as you can see, it's quite dry up here. Just so we start bringing in that darker colour here. You can separate the two legs. And one being darker than the other, pushes one behind. And I'm just tapping it to give it idea that it's feathers rather than just being a flat. And then I'm going to start bringing it up, this grey, on top of this white. Oops. Just banging things with my elbow. I'm just smoothing it out a little bit. I've got the grey still on my brush and just going over that white. It's just making that a little bit thicker. Now I am actually going to wipe my brush off. If you notice, I'm not really cleaning my brushes in anything apart from just wiping them off every now and then. I'll do the yellow first. I'll take a little bit of the yellow, just pan it in and pan it on both sides on my brush so it's nice and smooth in the brush. And then we've got yellow in this bit of his head. and the yellow comes down a little bit down like his neck. So I'm just going to go back and put some more yellow on my brush, and it blends in with the white, which is quite nice. And all I'm doing is I keep looking back at the reference to see where that yellow almost like stops to a certain degree. Now he's got a little bit of a shadow under his neck here. I'm going to paint in there, and then I'm going to come in, pick up a little bit of grey. Got a little bit of yellow in that bit as well. So, and we're going to give him that little bit of shadow under his chin. Just to suggest that that's a neck there. And then I'm going to wipe off my brush again. When I'm wiping off my brush, I am literally pretty much just wiping it like that, following it up. I don't want to be like scrubbing it back and forth. I want to always be careful of the hairs. The longer you look after your brushes, the better. It's an expense you don't necessarily have to have. The brushes will get worn down, especially if you're using canvas, because you're brushing hair almost like against sandpaper, and that's why you get like the old better brushes. If you can keep them as long as you can by a little bit of care. I've got a bit of that neon orange, but say any orange will do. And I'm just going to come in to that area there, almost like tap it in. I'm going to get a little bit more. I'm actually going to go a little bit heavier on my brush, because I want that beautiful orange coming down in the mouth. I'm going to try and fill just that area between those two black lines. There we go. And just because I am a little bit of a perfectionist, I'm going to go back to my black brush. Get that little bit of black there. And I want this line here to be really sharp. I'm just going to come in. Now, because I'm using the black with no Gamsol or anything in it, it's thicker than the white that's already there. So therefore it paints straight over the top of it. We'll look at fat over lean in another video. Oils can be made really complicated, but it's a little bit like if you were going to learn to drive a car, we go with an instructor and we learn to drive a car. If you think that you can learn to drive a car by looking at every car that's ever existed, how it's made, how it's put together, how it all handles, and looked at all those thousands of different kinds of car, that is a little bit like looking at oil paint. If you go online, there are people that do abstracts. There's people that do lovely big thick strokes with lots of thick layers and nice textures. And then you get people like me who paints in very thin layers. There's so much you can do with oils that it can actually become quite confusing, a bit scary. And oils aren't. In fact, oils are such a phenomenal paint experience that they are ideal for people that are learning. It's just a case that you're better off having a go, a little bit like driving a car, having a go, sitting in the seat and just having a go. You don't need to know how the car works. Nice little bit of depth there. There we go. I'm happy with him. Right, let's have a look at the little guy. Once again, I'm getting a brush that's slightly been spattered, just wetting it up a little bit. I'm going to come in and take some of this grey. We'll go dark to start with. Get him on there, and I'm just going to fill in his body. And for him, I think he looks a bit fluffy. So rather than do the little lines coming down as the way his feathers are going, because he's fluffy, I'm just
pattern it on. Like, there will be pink coming through, but that's fine. If you have fur and you're patching fur, it always reflects the colour around it, so it doesn't really matter too much if some of the colour from underneath comes through, if that's, as long as that's the colour that's around it as well. I've attached this piece of paper to a board, and that's what you can hear tapping back and forward, so sorry about that. I might actually put a bit of background music on when I do the recording so you don't hear it. And then you'll wonder what I'm talking about. Right, it's darker down the bottom, so we're going to go a little bit lighter at the top here. Just pat, 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 pat. Just filling in his belly. Right, bring it a little bit more darker here. Do you think I went too dark? Let's get this bottom bit in. Then we'll come back, get a little bit more light. Just patting him in. Now, the thing with, if you're looking at yours and thinking, oh my, it doesn't look like that, oh my, it looks awful. You know, if this is the very first time you're having a go at oils, you know, it might not be exactly the same as mine, and that's okay. But also, just be aware that with oils, things can look really quite ropey until it's almost like finished. It's known as the ugly stage. And believe me, all us artists go through it. Right, so this bit here, I just want to make him look like he's got an arm there. So I'm going to come in with my brush that's got a little bit of a point. Actually, I'll give that a quick wash because I can see that there's some yellow on that. So to clean my brush off when it's got a completely different colour, I wipe it off on my towel. I give it a good old swish around in the Gamsol, and then I pretty much dry it off again. And then we'll come back, we'll pick up this grey. We're just going to give him a little bit more of a arm here. Now his arms look like a completely different colour to his body, but if you look at the photo, it does a little bit. Right, wipe it off again. Then I'm going to come up and get some of that white. Might have to get some more white by the looks of it. And we're going to come in with my mouth stick and paint that white in around his face. Come back over, get my brush that's got the point, go back into that black, come back up here, get that little bit of grey going in it. This black, this top of his head is quite black. Now, if you haven't got this pink, I really like the shocking colour behind it, but if you haven't got the pink, any colour will do. I've actually found gold looks really nice. But if you want to go a little bit more classic, you can go blue. In fact, he could just stay white as well. It's almost like he's got a really bad beetle haircut. Is it me? Can you see the beetles there? Right, I need to leave a little bit for his beak. Now I'm going to change the beak a little bit to the photo, just because I want the beak to look like a beak. I'm not sure in the photo it does. With the very point of my brush, I'm going to angle my mouse stick to the point where I can touch the paper really gently with the point of my brush to get our eye in. We've got our eye here and an eye here. So once again, I'm going to come back over here, get a little bit more grey going. I'm going to just shape his beak in a little bit. And then get that little highlight going. And just wipe my brush off there. Get a bit more white. And do a little dot in the middle there for his beak. For me, that black is probably a little bit too black. Yeah, so for me, that black's just a bit too black. And this is what I'm saying, sometimes it can be a little bit flat. So I'm coming back in with a bit of grey, with a bit of more of a blue going through it. A bit more brown. And I'm going to go over the black that I just put in. So where we have light, sometimes we have a little bit of darkness under here. That might still be a bit, to get a lot of that off my brush. What I'm going to do is once again wipe it off my brush, but it's still got paint on there, which is going to be darker. And we can blend that lightly in there. Same with this side, and just give this little fluff a little bit more shape. As you can see, there's hardly any paint on my brush, but I'm going to come back up to that grey. And I also want to shape this wing a little bit more. If your wing is looking fine, don't feel like you have to do what I'm doing. Clean my brush up a little bit. Come up a little bit that grey. For me, this is a little bit like not joint together, so I'm just going to bring it in. It looks like it's one penguin. I made the mistake of doing that too black. But it's okay. We live and learn. And that's what paint is about. Now, I'm really happy with how he's looking. I have been doing a reflection in the bottom, which I really like. I'm not going to add too much Gamsol because I actually want to be able to swish it over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the black from here, and I'm putting on quite a bit on my brush because I want to leave enough so that when we swish it over, it'll make sense when I actually go to do it. You'll find that the more paint that you've left on this bit here, the easier it is. I'm going to take that right up to him there. There. And there. And then I'm just going to copy that down. Scrape some more paint off over here. Needs to have a little bit more light in there. Getting that down over
body. Am I allowed to call him fat? Probably not. His little plump body. Same here, just copy that down there. And get a bit of darkness again. Now, I squashed the body down. I like it like that, rather than just having a straightforward copy from the top the same size. Mix that blue and brown again. Let's not make the mistake of just putting pure black. I'm going to do his head. Might get his little black top of his head in. Back to get him with the little grey arms. A bit more white. We are going to need more white. Where's the white? Where's the white? A bit more white. We are going to need more white. Where? Maybe not as much as that. A bit heavy-handed there. So, best part of this whole process, if I can find the right brush. The majority of my paintings, I always use brushes that are for acrylics or watercolours because I like the softness. But for this one, I've actually got a fan brush, but it's actually for oil paints because I want a little bit of texture on this bit part. I'm going to lay it down here. I'm pushing really quite hard. There, pushing quite hard. And I'm just going to scrape it across. Dampen my brush. I'm going to try again. Start from there and scrape across. Almost like it's got it's like the reflection in the ice underneath. Right. So you can see I had a little bit too much Gamsol. It's made that run, but that's okay because I'm going to literally take that out now anyway. Again. So I went wrong. Just covered it in Gamsol, removed it, but we'll come back in. I need black for his head. Black for his head. And the white here. Cleanish brush. And scraping over. I'm going to just join this bit up a little bit underneath them.
I've already made one of these and I've actually gave it away to my sister for Christmas. Because I just loved the finished piece. This is my very first recorded online tutorial. With practice, I hope my instructions will become even clearer. If you painted this penguin yourself, I'd love to see it. Feel free to share it with me via Instagram or email. If you have any questions or suggestions for me to improve in my recording, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.